Summer really is one of my favorite seasons for a number of different reasons, but one of those is because of all the fresh produce that we have, the fruits, vegetables. It just makes cooking so much fun. So I thought I'd take you guys through a few days of eating. These are high protein, high fiber meals that I have been loving this summer. And if it's your first time here and you're brand new, hello, welcome. We are so excited to have you. My name's Claire. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I practice in Toronto, Canada. And my goal for this channel is to really help you feel more educated and empowered when it comes to your health, whether that's educated around nutrition or how your body works. We also talk a lot about taking a very holistic approach to your health. So looking at mind, body, and soul. We love the science, but we also realize that there is so much in the human experience as well. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, we'd love to have you subscribe. We'd love to have you here every week. But with that being said, let's just jump right into the video. You guys know I'm a huge fan of having the same breakfast every morning. I just find it cuts down on decision fatigue. I really don't have to think about it. Plus, I know that 99% of the time it's going to keep me full and satiated until lunch. And this is one that I've been loving. I love doing hard-boiled eggs in the summer. It's just really nice to not have to turn on a pan in the summer when it's already pretty warm in my apartment. And I will usually boil my eggs for about 7 to 8 minutes depending on the size to get the perfect consistency. And then I love having those with some avocado that I just mash with some cottage cheese just for some extra protein. And then I have it on some 100% whole wheat sourdough bread that I get from a local bakery. Of course, I always add berries in the summer because they are in season, so they're a lot more affordable. And that is my go-to breakfast. You have tons of fiber between the berries, the avocado, and the whole wheat toast, and lots of protein between the cottage cheese and the eggs. And then I had a tiny little bit of pesto that I had made the week before. I made this in my last video, so I will link that down below if you guys want to check that video out for the full recipe. So I wanted to try and use it to make an edamame spread. So I thawed some frozen edamame. I just poured some boiling water over them and then gave them a rinse a few minutes after and added those into the jar and then used my immersion blender to blend it all together. It definitely came out a little bit on the chunky side, but I kind of like that. And this was such a delicious spread. I like using this because it's a really nice way to add a little bit more fiber and a little bit more protein to your meal. Sometimes if I don't have a protein source that I know is going to get me to that 20 to 30 gram goal, something like getting a few extra grams from a pea or an edamame spread can be really helpful. I always love to combine different proteins like you saw me do at breakfast as well. For my main protein source, I did do sardines. You guys know I love sardines. They are a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. They are also a source of vitamin D, and if you eat them with the bones in, they're a great source of calcium. So I always say they're really like a menopause superfood. I also had some of the edamame spread. I added in some broccoli sprouts. I love broccoli sprouts. They're a great source of sulforaphane. They're great for helping with natural detoxification. Added some more blueberries for some more fiber and polyphenols. And then I had these pickled red onions. I've made these in other videos, so I will link a video below. I also added another piece of sourdough bread, and I really love doing a snack plate for lunch in the summer. I just find it's a really easy way to get a nice, balanced, nutrient-dense meal in. And one of my favorite dinners to make in the summer is my sweet potato sliders. So I just started by cooking some ground beef patties. I just do grass-fed ground beef and then I smash them down to make them like little smash burgers. And then I had some leftover Japanese sweet potato in the fridge. So I love using these as my burger bun. I love sweet potatoes in general, but I also love that when you cook and cool them, they become a resistant starch. So they're great for supporting blood sugar and supporting a healthy gut microbiome, beating that beneficial gut bacteria. And then to add a little bit more fiber and some healthy fats, I had some avocado on the side. I also had some more of the broccoli microgreens. This is one dinner that I absolutely love. And then I always like to have something sweet for dessert. And lately I've been loving doing dates and peanut butter. So one thing I will switch up with my breakfast is the fruit. I just like to go to the markets and see what looks good to me. I do really love stone fruit. So I picked up some nectarines that were really juicy and just delicious. And I had some of that with my breakfast on the second day. But I have been getting some questions about my protein goals and why I don't have a higher protein goal. You guys know I aim for about 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. I find that I feel good around 80 to 90 grams total throughout the whole day. And that's really based on my age, my weight, and my own personal health goals, right? So I know I'm on the younger age, so I'm not necessarily trying to combat things like anabolic resistance that women in perimenopause or menopause may be thinking about. There are so many different factors that need to be taken into account when looking at calculating your own protein goals. But things that often come to mind are things like age, metabolic function, body composition, digestive function, and other health conditions that will all impact how much protein you need on a daily basis. And personally, I found that prioritizing more carbohydrates and more fats in my meal has been really helpful for helping to support my HPA or my HPA-O axis, which stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal ovarian axis. Of course, I'm still prioritizing protein in my meals, but also making sure that I'm really prioritizing healthy carbohydrates, fats, fiber, and micronutrients that are going to really help support my body. But anyway, moving on to lunch, I wanted to make some tempeh spring rolls. I already had the tempeh pre-made in the fridge. I've made this tempeh in so many different videos, so I will link one of those videos, but I have been getting some questions asking me about my rice paper and how I wet the rice paper and actually roll the rolls. So I just dunk the rice paper in room temperature water for 2 to 3 seconds. You really don't want to oversaturate it because it will continue to soften as you add all of your fillings. It will still feel stiff when you pull it out of the water, but it's going to continue to soften. And then I add all of my toppings. I try and roll it as tight as I can without ripping it, and then your rolls won't fall apart. And here I just did carrots, avocado, tempeh, and some spring mix. I love using tempeh as a protein source because it's actually got a ton of fiber as well. It's got about 7 grams of fiber per serving. So between the avocado, the tempeh, you have lots of fiber. You have a little bit of fiber as well from the other veggies. I do really love using the tempeh as the protein source as well because if it's already pre-cooked, you don't have to turn on your oven or your stove or anything like that, which can be really nice on a summer day. And I did have some leftover peanut sauce in the fridge as well, but don't worry, I made it again in this video, so you will see the recipe in a few minutes. And that was just a very simple summer lunch. Like I said at the start of the video, I really love summer because of all of the fresh produce, and one of my favorites is Ontario sweet corn. This is in season from late summer to early fall, so I love to use it when I have it on hand. And a few weeks ago, I made this corn and nectarine salsa for my family, and it was a huge hit, so I wanted to make it again. I just started by chopping up some corn. You can definitely char this on the grill or cook it or boil it if you prefer it cooked, but I actually really like it raw, so I just started with 2 ears of corn, and then I did about 1.5 nectarines. Like I said, these are so delicious and juicy, and they add a really nice sweet element to the salsa. And then I originally made this with thinly sliced and chopped red onions, but I really wanted to use up my pickled onions, so I just finely chopped those and added those in as well. And I actually think the pickled flavor was a really nice addition to the salsa. And then to add in a little bit of creaminess, I also did a whole avocado. dressing to this because every component is so flavorful, but I just thinly chopped some cilantro and then I added some lime juice, salt, pepper. And I do really find that this stores well in the fridge for a few days, even with the avocado, because the lime really helps to prevent that from oxidizing. And I just find that this is such a versatile salsa. You can have it with chips, you can have it on tacos, which is what I did, or you can have it on a rice bowl. Of course, I always taste it and just make sure all the seasoning is right. And then I put it into a Tupperware container because I was actually meeting up with a friend. We were going to do a little picnic in the park. So I brought that. I also stopped by Whole Foods and just picked up some pre-cooked shrimp. I love using pre-cooked shrimp in the summer. I talk to patients all the time and they say that protein is something they really struggle with in the summer because they don't necessarily want to turn on the stove or the oven to cook a lot of protein. And sometimes protein can feel a little bit heavier in the meal as well. And when days are really hot, you may not be really drawn to that. So I love using those things like the canned sardines, hard-boiled egg, shrimp, pre-cooked tempeh or tofu, chicken salad, those proteins that don't necessarily feel so hot and heavy in the summer. But anyway, these are a few clips from the picnic. It was really, really fun. She ended up bringing the actual tortillas and then I just brought the salsa and the shrimp. I had, I think, about 3 or 4 of these tacos and it was just really, really nice. So you guys are always asking me for more gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free breakfast ideas, and this is one I love. It's also great for the day after or a few days after I make the sweet potato sliders because I can basically reuse all the ingredients. It's basically all the ingredients that I used in that dinner, just in a different format, but it's my beef hash. I love having this as a hash in the morning if I don't feel like eggs. I just start with some ground beef, but you can really use any ground meat that you want, and then I added in some chopped up sweet potatoes. In the fall and winter, I also love using roasted carrots and parsnips. And then for some greens, I added these pea shoots and then I just added some avocado on top. This is such a filling, satiating breakfast. It keeps me full all morning. And if I have the sweet potatoes already cooked, it comes together in about 10 minutes. And for lunch, I decided to make up some more of the edamame spread. I actually really liked it from a few days before. I was also leaving for a trip a few days after I filmed this, so I was really trying to avoid going to the grocery store, and I was trying to use up everything that I had in my fridge, my freezer, my pantry. So I just started by thawing out some of the edamame beans, and then I went out to my balcony, picked some of the basil, added that in as well, and then I just added everything that I add into my pesto recipe. So I did some salt, garlic powder, some extra virgin olive oil. This is one that I had from Greece last year. And then I added in some nutritional yeast and just blended that with my immersion blender. I think I also had to add a little bit more water as well just to thin it out. I also added in a tiny bit of lemon.
Rain in the front range in the morning, clear skies all afternoon, a midsummer's night dream.
And then I topped that off with some sardines, pea shoots, and a little bit of extra virgin olive oil and sea salt. I will say if you don't like the taste of sardines, I would try dressing them with just a little bit of sea salt and olive oil. It does really help with the taste. That was my lunch. Again, you have lots of fiber between the edamame spread and the whole wheat bread. And then the main source of protein is the sardines, but you're also getting a little bit from the edamame as well.
She'll dance alone while I set the mood by fireplace.
And for dinner, I just kept it super simple. I made up another batch of my peanut sauce and then just had some more tempeh spring rolls.
She moans for me while I set the tone, unraveling.
Another breakfast that I love in the summer is a Greek yogurt bowl. So I only had a little bit of this yogurt left. It technically wasn't Greek yogurt, it was actually skyr, but I added just a little bit of collagen powder to that, mixed it in the tub, and then added it to my bowl. I also washed up some blueberries, and then lately I've been loving this Smart brand cereal. The ingredients are actually pretty good, and it has a ton of fiber, and I really like the crunch. So I added that to my yogurt bowl along with some hemp seeds and cacao nibs just for some extra micronutrients. I always like to add a little bit of sea salt. I think it brings the flavors together, and then a big scoop of peanut butter. This is such an easy and quick breakfast, and it is so delicious. Normal breakfast for breakfast. I ended up having it for lunch. Ideally, I would have had a little bit more veggies with this, but like I said, I was leaving for a trip in a few days, so I was really working with minimal ingredients in my fridge. And then I ended up going out to dinner with my boyfriend and a bunch of his friends. We went to Mimi's Chinese in Toronto, and it was absolutely delicious. There was so much food, and I remember back at the start of my health journey, I was so restrictive with going out to eat because I wasn't in control of the food and what was being cooked. But I now realize that food is such a great way to connect with others, to connect to other cultures, to connect to other generations. Happy birthday. And that does really bring us to the end of the video. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got value out of the content. I hope you got some education or inspiration, things that you can implement into your life. Like I said, make sure to subscribe if you are new here, because we would really love to have you every week. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up because it really does help out my channel. let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of the video, what you want to see more of on this channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.